Welcome to Our English. I am Priscilla Ramcharan here in the United States. And as usual, we have conversations from all walks of life. So today we have an amazing teacher, super duper author who is joining us to talk about his new book. So please welcome and introduce yourself.
Hey, I am Glen Coleman. I've been teaching social studies in North Jersey for the past 28 years. I've developed some innovative practices that at first blush might seem a little silly, but I believe that in the classroom you have to have it, the classroom exists so that you can create mistakes and so you can learn from them. And that means we need a sense of humor, and that means we can grow. So I know that with standardized testing and with big data, it's easy to get unforgiving because this is the score. But I see all of those things in terms of scores, in terms of academics, as basically a means for growth.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us today. You've already started the conversation with a topic that is close to my heart as a
Nice.
teacher as well, going on about 15 years or so.
Right.
But I teach English, literature, Spanish, and English as a second language, as well as creative writing.
Hmm.
So I get all of the tools ready for your kind of essays.
Right. Right. Of
Awesome.
course.
So, Glenn, what got you into teaching in the first place?
Um, well, it's quite simple. When you fail first grade, you start to look at the world differently. And my failure was due to really bad handwriting, bit of hyperactivity. And back in like the early 70s, handwriting was a metric of one's
Right.
capacity to do well in school. I mean, that's the only way that people could read things. So uh, I failed. And what was fascinating, just like looking back on, is my mom and my dad, but my mom was really the keeper of the flame. She would
Mm,
ask me questions, and at the dinner table, we would just talk. And how do you know this? What do you think about this? What do you think, Glenn? So while the school said that I was dumb, my mom asked me what I thought.
I
And that's,
love that.
yeah, and that's pretty much my lodestar. I just think that what do you think is a unexpectedly powerful question when we listen. And just moving forward just a little bit, my ninth grade year, my dad bought home a personal computer, and it was literally
I remember.
you're
I
right.
remember those.
It's such an epiphany for me to actually read what I could write on that green screen
Right.
that hurt your eyes when you stared at it. The first screen for personal computers. But no matter what eye strain I had, I was ecstatic that I could
Right.
move a thought on screen was absolutely an epiphany. So years later, I wanted to continue the conversations that my mom and dad promoted and that we had at high holidays, or Thanksgiving, and I wanted to continue that tradition.
I love that. And you reminded me of when my grandfather brought one of those computers home and it was just a black
Right,
screen with the
right.
words and you had a game or two and
Yeah,
it was
sure.
exciting. I
Oh my
believe
God.
it.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So you're
Yeah,
saying you chose the path of teaching because of your experience with the school system and with the teachers that you had,
right.
and then your mom having actually listened to you and understand your point of view and what your learning style is, and you wanted to pass that on to others.
Yeah, and I would just go one step further with
Uh-huh.
my mom and dad is that they would actually will say, "How do you know that?
Mm.
Did you read anything about that?
Mm-hmm.
We have a newspaper here. Do you see anything in the newspaper that says that?" And so like those questions were really inquiries, you know? And and so in the classroom today, of course I'll ask, "How do you know?" But I want to provide a space where you could say, "I don't know, but let's find out."
Yes.
Right.
Yes. That
Right.
room for growth and learning,
Yeah.
working together,
Yeah.
helping each other. And it's just the bottom line is what's your proof? Where is this coming from? Where'd you find
Right.
this? Who said
Right.
this? I'm the same with my girls. And we
Nice.
homeschool for the
Right.
reason of having that next level of thinking, having that
Right.
space. So that is so wonderful. I'm so happy to talk to you.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah,
Me
so let's
too.
get to the
Yeah.
heart of the matter.
Sure.
Congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
Woohoo! You're
Yes.
welcome. As
Awesome.
you know, I'm an avid reader. I read any
Yes.
and everything, and I'm so appreciative of you for sending this to me to give
Sure.
me that social studies side of,
Yeah.
what that world is like. So,
Right.
Glenn, tell us,
Yes, Priscilla.
what was your inspiration?
Sure. I'm a history teacher, and
Ooh,
I know that technological change flows across everything. It's like a tidal wave. And sometimes those tidal waves, so to speak, move slow. So
hmm.
we could say that the printing press prints its first Bible, Gutenberg Bible, 1455. But you only have the French Revolution in 1789, hundreds of years later. English Revolutions in the 1600s. English Revolution and Glorious Revolution. Those are like slow motion changes compared to today. Today, we have more information being produced in basically 10 seconds than all of human history. I'm going to
Right.
say that again. Like the rate of generation of information is double exponential, such that like every day, every 12 hours, and it's going to be a time that compresses ever more,
Right.
is being generated double what was produced in all of human history before that. This is, as a title of the book states, is a new crazy.
Yes.
And this, of course, affects our politics, it affects our mental health, it affects how we understand the world. And there's so many complexities related to that. I just think of the problem of audience capture.
Hmm.
Because let's say back in 1960s, Walter Cronkite on CBS News, I think it was, reported on the Vietnam War.
Mm.
Nobody debated the facts. No, they just discussed the facts. They didn't debate whether it was true or false. The Vietnam War was happening.
Right.
But now we cannot agree on those basic facts. So, how do you continue this democratic experiment where the basic premises of agreed upon assumptions for factuality, to just say facts, not even factuality, what if that's a word?
Right.
Um, eh,
It's okay.
so that
We're creatives. We can do that.
right, but that's kind of the question. Like, how do you teach in a time of it's not unparalleled change? It is a change that is completely unique to our species and the planet. And it requires us to, I don't know, reassess everything and I think reprioritize our connection to each other instead of to technology. Or I should say
Absolutely.
with technology, because it's not like instead, it's not a substitute.
No, it's not a substitute. And just on a personal level, you're getting all of this information so fast. How do you process it? How do you apply it to what you're working on? It just comes and comes and comes, and
Right,
you need that moment to digest. But there really isn't much of those moments because you need to know this, you need to find out that. I
right.
totally agree with you. And so this is what you're discussing
That's
here.
right. And I have some ideas for us going forward, but a historical analogy helps, which is the creation of our Constitution, which is right behind me, right? The thing that says we the people,
Right.
right, in order to form a more perfect union, that type of thing, is that document was created over the course of 4 months
Hmm.
of private, face-to-face conversation with people from around the nation. Think about that. When's the last time that you had a conversation for 4 months, face
Right.
to face? So this is what birthed our Constitution, and it seems like I think we need a constitutional convention every day. In our private lives, we need that constitutional
Yes.
convention. What are the rules? What are we thinking? Let alone have that convention regarding government.
Right. And it reminds me of this other book that I'm reading related to essentialism. What is
Mm.
essential in this moment? What is not essential? Is this a priority? Is this just, taking some of my time just to pass the time? So it's choosing what your priority is in that moment to maximize your focus and utilize your time to build those goals that you're working towards.
Right. And I just want to say, Priscilla, to your
Hmm.
excellent point about essentialism, is to me, what is essential is a conversation about
Right.
what do you think? And for us to find out how do we know this? Maybe we can improve the knowledge that we have or our assumptions
Right.
and express what we know. I think that conversation is especially with young people,
Right.
absolutely crucial.
Now, just as a side note, when speaking to young people, do you more often get an I don't know as opposed to, let me think about it?
That's a great question. Yeah, I I have a bit of a hack about that.
Tell
So
me.
in our class we do 2-minute speeches with no notes.
Oh.
So that would be you could use 20 words on a note card,
Hmm.
but ultimately we want to know what you think. And we want to know how your thinking connects to the larger historical conversation so that it's grounded not just in opinion, but it's
Hmm.
grounded in your understanding of the world, your understanding of history, and of course, your unique insight. So, um, yeah, I think to teach in the new crazy is to really be serious about what do you think, and to actually, like my mom, just to be
Hmm.
rigorous and say, well, how do we know that?
Right.
And then we could all answer it together. There's not a right or wrong answer. There's just a process. Like how could there be right and wrong answers in a time of such gargantuan change?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So part of it is utilizing what we have at our fingertips with the online world and bringing it into real world conversations where you're actually one on one or in a group having these discussions. Do
Right.
you think this is accurate? What do you think about that?
Right. I think that the idea is to hack some of the tendencies that have been normalized with
Mm-hmm.
scrolling. It's
Oh, mm-hmm.
from what I read, uh, a good website is a Center for Humane Technology, and they have a certain part called Ledger of Harms, and they explain that most people are swiping every
Mm-hmm.
19 seconds,
Oof.
and every 19 seconds when you swipe, you get a slight dopamine hit, which is kind of an addictive trend that's being created as you experience this hit, and your memory is declining.
Mm, I can
So
attest to that.
sure. So my question is,
Yes.
how can I do the opposite? How can we have sustained
Mm,
attention in a classroom? And the answer is we have to listen to our friends. We have to hear what they say. And we have to give them, when they do those speeches twice, one thing I forgot to mention, this two
mm-hmm.
minute speech, no notes,
Yes.
is you do the speech at least twice because you want mistakes. You want imperfections. You want vulnerability. You don't want a script. You're not doing a 30-second meme on TikTok. You're telling us what you think. And so we can hack the system in a classroom because we could have no phones. Not to say that you need them or you don't need them. Or we
Mm-hmm.
could have no computer. We could just have each other in a piece of paper, listen to somebody, and say, wow, that was awesome. And that happens a lot. If you really listen, it's kind of like theater. You put a light on somebody, things happen.
Indeed. Like when I turn on this Zoom, it's like, voila.
Yes, exactly.
Well, funny story is I spent a couple of days at a boarding school out in Pennsylvania, and in the
Mm,
classrooms, the Wi-Fi was horrendous.
mm,
I don't know if it was because of it was a summer session or what have you. And so we couldn't log into our SSAT prep.
mm,
We just
mm.
really had to use this pen and paper. And because of COVID, a lot of those students weren't accustomed to pen and pencil. pen and paper. It
Right.
was a new experience for them to actually handwrite their thoughts or work on the assignment. But eventually, it was fun for them. They enjoyed
Right.
seeing each other's handwriting on paper. They enjoyed holding it and reading. So
Right.
I think it was a happy accident that the Wi-Fi was just poor.
Absolutely. I mean, there's something to be said about just sitting without it's kind of a precious thing in our society to have a moment without distraction.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I have this journaling thing that I do where I use
Mm,
mind maps,
mhm.
and it's very therapeutic just to write, to not have that distraction, to be really to tune into yourself compared to, sorry for the antiquated metaphor, as compared to a radio, I'm tuning
Mhm.
into me.
Right.
I want students to tune into them. Like, it's what do you think? It's interesting too because a lot of times if you ask that, the question is, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the answer is, not that I would ever say this, but does that concern you?
Mm.
That, like, you don't know what you think? You don't even know that you're thinking about
Right.
something?
That's a good point. I like that.
Yay. That's good, I'm
Yeah,
glad.
indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. And it is something so amazing. I really started getting into meditation and
Oh,
quieting the mind and really learning to listen to myself, like you're saying,
mm,
just because there was so much stimulation, TV, the laptops, the cell phones. And
yeah.
so I said, you know what? I need some quiet time. And at the beginning, it was crazy. I just couldn't tune anything out. But the moment I started realizing how to just enjoy my time with myself, that essentialism habit came in where I'm choosing what I'm looking at. I'm choosing when I'm looking at it. I'm choosing what to think about it. Do I need to think about this? So it is incredible when you have that quiet moment, but it
Right.
scares a lot of folks to sit by themselves in their thoughts.
Yeah, I noticed that too in my teaching, is that, um, if you say something like if you kind of like not look deeply, just a little deeply, you'll be like, wait, that doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then people can be upset. Like, what do you mean it doesn't make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's just stop. So, like, the answer to like a panic or to a question, like, let's just slow down. My dad was really good at that. Just let's slow down for a second. And then if you slow down, then things are actually much more in view.
Yes.
It's like, what do you mean that, I don't know, whatever X is, whatever the premise is.
Right.
And then eventually it's like, oh, so it's like the world is speeding up. We have to slow down. There's a
Indeed.
lot of information. Let's have less information. We're only talking for 2 minutes. If we get three facts, we're amazing. Let's
Indeed.
slow it down. So, as a student of history, I think, what are the trends and how do we kind of s- salvage our humanity? And we got to be human with each other,
Yeah,
social
absolutely.
creatures. Yeah.
Well, a teacher colleague of mine sent a message and says, time is just going so fast. I can't get
Right.
everything done, this and that. What do I do? I said, slow down time.
Right.
It's like, what? I said,
That's
you can
cool.
literally slow down time. Pace yourself, pace what you're doing. Take a moment to appreciate what you just accomplished. Like oftentimes we're like, on to the next. And we
Right.
didn't realize we woke up this morning. We fed ourselves, we got ourselves dressed and out the door. Hey, what an accomplishment.
Okay. Right.
Right? So a lot of it
Well
is just
said.
that we ourselves are so accustomed to the go, go, go
Mm.
that it's a part of us now. And actually learning to be bored might be an activity to do. Just sit in your now.
Right. Right. It's interesting because I remember I was talking to a student and
Hmm.
I said, there's so much to say mind boggling is to understate it, but I'll just say it. So much mind boggling technological growth. I mean, double exponential is a hard phrase to put your mind around. In fact,
Hmm.
I've learned a new word, which is
Oh,
exponentiate.
Indeed, I
It
like that.
exponentiate itself, the technology upon us. And I said, as this technology changes, but our brain is the same. It's been the same for thousands and decades and millennia. And how do we it's funny, like, as all the attention is on that growth,
Mhm.
we have to remember we're the same as we were 40,000 years ago when those cave paintings were painted in France. The buffalo and the
Mhm.
fire.
Mhm. Down
And I think that's what you're
basic.
saying. It's like that
Yes.
sense of stillness. This is Buddha. We're talking 4,000 years ago, 3,000
Right.
years ago. These are ancient traditions that we can tap into. They didn't have Instagram, and they were okay. Time was slower, going to your point.
Right. I
It's
remember
interesting.
those summers as a kid. I suspended in the islands, and there
Nice.
wasn't technology. You had like three TV channels and such, so we were outside, and it was just like, man, is it still daytime? You
Right.
know?
Right. And then you made your own fun, right? Then your
And then you made your own
imagination.
fun,
That's
right?
your imagination came from that boredom. Like you have each other, "Well, let's play a game, when you're a child. And then
Yeah,
suddenly time flies, right?
indeed.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
interesting.
absolutely. This is so wonderful. You have to come back and we have to discuss so many
Sure.
other things for sure.
Of
And my
course.
next question is, what is your motivation each day to go back into the classroom?
Boy, that's a great question. Um, I my motivation is really to explore that question of what do you think and finding connections, not only to students, but to the world
Hmm.
and to each other and to the material. And I say that because learning is kind of like a drug to me. That's kind of what it was when I was failing, first through. I would read that encyclopedia and I just loved it. I still have that picture of Jupiter, and then the human anatomy. I still have the picture of that in my brain. And they just marveled me, if that's a sentence. And with young people, you can do that. You could ask them, "What do you think?" And you can look for things, and you could see you're going for high fives. That's
Hmm.
that sense of achievement. They're like,
I
"Oh, I
like
didn't
that.
know that." You're going for high fives and you're going for wow.
I
And
like
so
that.
these are not hard targets when you ask like really fundamental basic questions like, "What do you think? How do we know? What should we do? Does that concern you?" That I don't know, that whatever the statistic may be. And it's about growth. We're doing the speeches now, those 2-minute speeches, no
Hmm.
notes. They do them twice.
I love
The
that.
first time is to be awkward, the second time is to improve. And there was a student who's like brilliant, and I want to be this student when I grow up. It's what I said after, she delivered the speech. It was great, but it ultimately did not work. It was very thoughtful. She was prepared, but it fell flat.
Mm.
And the student did it again today, privately to me in the back. First time was in front of class, and it was amazing. I was like, wow, like you really, not only that you learned something, but you've discovered something about the world.
Hmm.
And I was
Hmm.
like, yeah.
She embraced it. She
She
embraced what
embraced
it,
it.
yeah. I
Yeah,
love that. And I
yeah.
love the look on their faces when they're like,
Oh, it's amazing. It's
this is
amazing.
so wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. Well, perfect. So, what would be your final message to our viewers?
Sorry for the big sigh. It's a good question.
Sighing is
I
good. It's oxygen to the brain.
Nice, Priscilla, nice. Oxygen, we like oxygen. I'm all for it. Pro
Yeah.
oxygen. Vote for me. I would say, my dream is to have a kinder and gentler and maybe a little more gritty classroom. That you can be kind and gritty. That you can be really thoughtful and know nothing. Meaning, like you could have questions, but not be a know-it-all.
Right.
Like we can be curious and we can be um, what's the word? We can be curious. We can express what we know with humility. And so I really like this idea of kindness, humility, a little grit, because I don't think students are attracted to easy. If you have an easy class, it's going to be a boring class.
Indeed.
But if you have a challenging classroom and you're permitted to fail and try again, it's going to be pretty engaged because they'll go places they never thought they could.
Right. Lovely, lovely message. It
Nice.
has
Thanks
been
so much.
amazing.
Right back
Yes,
at you.
absolutely. Thank you. I mean, of course, you and I could go on forever
Yeah.
about teaching stuff, but I will put the link in the description box so you
Thank you.
all can find Glenn's amazing book. I actually had to take notes
Mhm.
myself. I
Nice.
actually thought, what do I think? So this is definitely a page turner. I messaged him. I said, "Hey, this is a page turner, and I'm taking notes." So you're really going to enjoy this, but it's also a thinker. It's also going to help you recognize what you need to focus on, depending on the personalities that you're with as well.
That's right. That's right.
Yes, sir. So thank you for your time. Have a
Thank you, Priscilla.
wonderful, wonderful day. And remember to send me that link.
Yes. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
too. Say
Yes.
bye.
Bye bye. See you guys.
Toodaloo.